Hello, this is the Porgcorner with your hosts Mark and Steven. We talk comics, film, books, television, science, and gaming. We come from different nerddoms. Steven lives and breathes Star Wars, and I'm a Superman and DC fanatic. We also touch on the Marvel Universe and other sci-fi and fantasy franchises. Now, let's get to episode 14, our Secret Life of Pets 2 review. Secret Life of Pets 2 takes place a few years after the events of the first film. In this film, we see Max, Duke, and the whole gang back together for another adventure. And this time, the biggest adventure of all is learning how to be a good pet to his owner's new child. Steven, what did you think of the first film from a few years back?
I loved the first one. That's why I was super excited to see the second one. The first one, was awesome. The jokes were so funny. As a pet owner, as a dog lover, I was just totally consumed by the first movie. You know, you get to kind of hear the voices of the animals, and you get to kind of see the life the secret life of pets, right?
Right.
It was really endearing.
So I was watching this YouTube video the other day. It was talking about how movies come in twos, and I think this film came out right around the same time as Zootopia. Do you remember that film from a few years back?
Yeah.
And so I just ended up watching the first film, Secret Life of Pets 1, just the other day in preparation for seeing the second one, and I really like the approach to this Secret Life of Pets. Like, humans are a big part of this story, relatively,
Right?
And they're just talking about, hey, what is it like to live life with humans as a pet instead of just an animal kingdom?
Yeah.
I thought it was a kind of cool approach.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, like, even just to give some context to it, I mean, like, in the second movie, one of the cats is talking to a dog, and it's like, oh man, or no, it was the cow. The cow was making fun of Duke, right. And he's like, oh, I'm just a dog, bark, bark, bark. I'm gonna sit and stare at the door all day, and wait for my human to come home.
It's so true. The jokes in the first film and this film I thought were really good. Pretty much all of them landed.
Yeah.
Like, they did a really good job just giving us a general idea of what pets are like.
Yeah.
So me, as someone who's a cat person, and I've had cats in the past as pets, they just nailed what cats are like personality-wise. Perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, the cat, hawks up a fur ball, and the human's like, no. And then after he does it kind of looks at the human and then waves its hand like, you should clean this up.
Yeah, you should clean up this puke hairball thing that I just spit out.
Oh my gosh. And the cat sitting on the edge of the table, like, knocking things off, but tapping it slowly to make it move just a little bit.
So I love the tapping things to make them fall aspect of it, because she does that. The character's Chloe, the cat. She does it multiple times in the film in the background. Yeah. Something will be happening, and in the background she'll be, like, knocking things off.
And the first time she does it, she's having, like, a one-on-one conversation with somebody, not making any eye contact with that person, that other dog, the dog. And is just, like, looking at the item and just tapping it while she's, like, having a legitimate conversation.
Yeah. Yep, and it's they ignore you when they want to.
Yep.
There was another one where she gets catnip.
Oh yeah.
The dog comes into her house or whatever, and she's, like, laying on her back and purring, and she's like, my owner just gave me catnip. Yeah. And so there's, like, a 5-minute sequence of her just doing all the crazy cat things you know of with catnip.
What's that sound? It sounds like a motor humming, or I don't understand what's going on. You're purring. Yeah. I'm making that noise? Like, oh my gosh, it's so funny.
It's so good. That's such a good character.
Funny. Yeah.
Chloe. Did you have, like, I don't know, is there a particular character, human or animal, that kind of sticks out to you? Main character, Max? Or?
I mean, obviously you jump on Max, like, you want him to be your dog, you want to root for him, but I really liked, he's a good boy. I really liked Rooster, which was Harrison Ford did the voice of Rooster, which was the dog on the farm.
Unexpected to me. Like, you, in the movie, you leaned over and you were like, hey, that's Harrison Ford. And I was like, what? Yeah. I couldn't believe you. I was like, no. Yeah. And then it clicked. I was like, yeah, that is his voice. He's in this film.
Yeah. I know, it was really good. I loved it.
So one thing about this film I really liked compared to the first one, actually, was that contrast between city and country. So a big chunk of this film takes place in some country house that Max and Duke are go to with their human family, and he learns to be kind of a dog that has no fear in the country. He kind of grows up a bit.
Yeah, Rooster, which is Harrison Ford's dog character, he's a farm dog, and so he lives. He's a tough dog. He herds the sheep. He wrangles the cows and everything, and so he kind of gives like life lessons to Max to kind of teach him like, you're a city dog, but you're really an animal. You should be tougher. There's some things you should do. So he mentors him really quickly over a weekend.
Right.
Which it relates to us, to the human story as well. I mean, that happens to us all the time. Our parents take us, we go, do summer camps or go, we had a deer lease that I grew up hanging out on and stuff like that. So you get to go out into the woods. You get to kind of learn, kind of grow a little bit and become a little bit tougher.
Yeah. The big journey and we talked about it when we saw the movie. The first film has a lot of adult themes or themes that adults can appreciate so they can enjoy the film. Yeah. And this continues that as well, although there are some changes, I think, with this, and we'll talk about that in a second. Yeah. But that is one of the lessons that I think adults can appreciate, and also, obviously, they want to instill that in kids. It's a kids aimed towards kids.
Yeah.
But basically, the idea of growing up.
Yeah.
We all grow up, and they're like, even pets grow up over time.
Yeah, and the lesson that he learns, and I think it's important that we talk about it here just so that we kind of say it. Rooster says, "Are you afraid?" And obviously Max says, "Yes, I'm afraid." And he goes, and then he's like, "How do I not be afraid?" And he says, the first step to not being afraid is acting like you're not afraid.
Right.
And that's true. If you act like you're not afraid, then you can kind of conquer your fear and take over, what's scaring you at that point.
It's a fake it till you make it lesson a bit, you know? Like, just pretend to be something, and sometimes you can get the results you're looking for.
Right.
And I think the whole, one thing to go back to is Max has to grow up because so his owner, in the first film, his owner, I think Katie, she just finds him on the street, and she adopts him. This film, they have a long first act where she meets a guy, they get married, they have a kid. And Max essentially becomes a pet to this new kid, or older brother, if you will.
Yeah.
And so he has anxiety because as a dog, he wants to protect this kid. Mm-hmm. And he feels like he can't, especially in the city with all the craziness going around. Yeah. And he starts getting anxiety.
Yeah.
And so, again, that's a adult lesson. Mm-hmm. In this film.
Right. You can't control everything. You can't be afraid of everything. So sometimes you got to roll with the punches, and that's okay.
Right. And people, and another thing is, people get anxiety. Mm-hmm. Pets can have anxiety. Mm-hmm. This film is demonstrating that.
Yeah, exactly. So. And I was thinking, I was actually thinking that in the theater, because I know very well, our vet tells us all the time, our dog can sense our anxiety. Mm-hmm. So my thought was, is Katie the mother? Does she have anxiety about the kid, going to preschool or getting hurt, and Max just happens to be projecting that into a voice that we're hearing in this movie?
Oh, yeah. That's smart. I didn't even think about that aspect of it. But that's absolutely right, because at the end of the film, they finally drop the kid off at preschool, right? It's a big culmination of this whole journey, right? Yeah. And the parents, you can tell, they're okay, but they're also, kind of apprehensive a little bit.
I mean, the dad's crying like a baby, so he's ready for him to grow up, but he's definitely emotional about it.
And you're right, Max acts as the surrogate to that emotion in this film, so that kids who see this film can kind of understand that a bit. The more I think about the sequel, I think they did a good job building off of those adult themes from the first one as well.
I agree. I think that we talked about that a little bit earlier before we started recording and after the movie and everything. This one, the sequel in particular, is, I feel, aimed more at kids, whereas the first one was definitely aimed at adults and pet owners and people who would actually understand, want to hear the voice of their pet. Right. And so the jokes in both movies are both kid and adult themed to try to get that kind of universal laugh from everybody. Yeah. But I do feel like this one has a little bit more of a kid theme aspect to it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's an animated film, so it's naturally geared towards kids, but there have been animal-focused movies, since Hollywood's existed, Lassie and whatnot, that can be aimed at adults who are pet owners.
Right.
Like, there are tons of these types of movies, and this was a good example of an animated one of these films. The first one, I should say, being aimed at adults that kids can enjoy. And like you said, this one maybe took a little bit of a turn where we're aiming it more towards kids.
Yeah.
And adults can hopefully enjoy it at the same time.
Yeah.
And overall, I think the balance was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was different balance, but it worked.
Yeah. Luckily, they didn't do a cookie cutter repeat of the first movie.
Yeah, this was very different.
Yeah, they definitely did. Different storyline, different staging for the different for the 3 acts.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to get to was, so one of my critiques of the first film was I felt Act 1 in that film was too short. Like, they basically do a montage, if you will, of girl picks up dog at off the street, brings him home, they grow, and then here's the adventure. And then we have a long second and third act. That was my impression or my feeling when I was watching the first one.
But I thought the first act in the first one included the point when Duke comes home and they have this whole like tit for tat where they don't like each other.
Yeah,
I included that in the first act because the second act is when they get lost, is when
Right.
they're no longer at home. That's when the adventure starts, but that's the second act. So I always thought the first act was pretty long
yeah.
because we get almost 2 stories that happen.
Yeah, I guess I'm more thinking of the introduction to the world. You know what I mean? Giving the context of the world. Like, yeah, we know it's New York.
Yeah. So
we know it's a city.
maybe that's just defined as the intro for that one.
Maybe it's the intro.
You know,
so
it's
that
just
was my feeling with that. It's like, I want to know more about this world, right?
Yeah.
And all the pets and all his friends that we meet, we meet them, but I felt like I wanted to get more. I wanted to see that gang together in the first one. But anyway, this film, I felt the opposite. I felt that the first act was really long.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time with Katie this time, her husband, and this new kid, and how Max is feeling about it.
Right.
And then the second and especially third act feel rushed.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. The second act, because I would consider about the time when they go to the farm, when he starts having his own little life lesson, that's the second act. And then the third act is obviously when they get home and they have to start that adventure.
Right.
I think the third act is just crammed in.
Yeah, that's the weakest part of this particular film
Yeah.
was that third, especially like the villain in this one.
Yeah.
And again, it's a kids movie. I know the villain is not going to be some complex character,
Right.
but the first one did have a kind of a complex character in the bunny. He was played by Kevin Hart.
Yeah. Oh
He
my
was
gosh.
hilarious.
Snowball's the best character in this
Snowball.
whole thing.
Yeah, he was amazing in
Yeah.
the first one. A great villain
Yeah.
who becomes kind of like a sidekick to Max and the crew. So like, there's an arc that villain goes on, even though it's a kids movie. So like, we as adults can appreciate that.
Yeah. And going back to this, the second act, I think the reason it kind of feels rushed is because we follow 3 storylines at this point.
Right.
We follow Gidget, we follow Snowball, and we follow Max.
Right.
So they're trying to tell us 3 stories through this entire movie instead of telling one story that kind of has little elements from each. Like the first one was just Max and Duke's story.
Right.
But we learned a little bit about Gidget and the friends. And then we have Snowball, the villain.
And I think the funny thing is, I like Snowball so much in the first one. In this one, I felt his storyline was the weakest part of the film. The whole capture or rescuing the tiger, and they introduced a new dog as well. And rescuing the tiger from the villain, it becomes the main villain, right?
Right.
All the stories tie back to that one,
Right.
and that's the weakest one. Probably the strongest one I felt was, other than Max's on the farm journey, is Gidget.
Yeah.
She gets a lesson on how to be a cat.
Mm-hmm.
From Chloe the cat.
From the cat,
which
yeah.
is hilarious.
Yeah.
The whole sequence.
The whole thing.
And one of my favorite scenes is her infiltration of the cat lair.
Yeah.
So there's that old lady who carries a cat lady, has dozens of cats, and she infiltrates that apartment to get back a little ball.
Yep.
A fetch ball.
Yep. It's crazy.
And it's like one of the best sequences in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. It is ridiculous. But yeah, even to that point, I was thinking about it. I was like, I couldn't figure out why Max wanted her to watch his favorite squeak toy so badly. And like, I was like, why is he doing this? And I was like, oh, because it's going to be part of the adventure. And I was like, well, this is going to be, I don't know how that's going to connect the dots, but it's because it didn't.
It didn't.
It doesn't. The squeak ball is not important to the story. It's just how Gidget, her individual story, takes off.
Yeah, it like you said, it's overpacked, this film, with these storylines and threads that lead nowhere.
Yeah.
a bit, you know.
Like, I feel like they could have. I think Gidget and Snowball's story should have somehow connected. Because if you think about it, like, I don't know, maybe she loses the ball. Maybe that involves the circus, and then that's how they find the tiger. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
we introduced a new dog that talks to Snowball that randomly knows about his ridiculous superhero belief system. Like he's
Right.
never he doesn't leave the house.
None of these.
He doesn't go to a dog park.
Right, right. And like the new dog, there's no character development with. Again, this is a kids movie, but there's still I expect that with any movie. Have some character development. Who are these people? Like,
Right.
who are these pets?
I was thinking they were gonna kind of do almost like in the movie Cars 2, where they introduce like the super secret agent. Because when the new dog starts like kicking butt, and she does it like a ninja when she's fighting. I was like, whoa, she's really good at this. So I just thought she was like a super secret agent that needed to use this Snowball, who thinks he's a superhero, as like a cover.
And that could see. Initially, when she was introduced, I was like, "Oh, she's fishy. That's gonna be a fishy."
Yeah, I thought it was
that
super
betrays
fishy.
him.
Yeah, but it wasn't. She was just that was 100% on the surface what was happening.
What you see, what you get, type of thing.
Yeah.
Another character that they did nothing with, which I really wanted to see, and actually a few. The tiger itself. He's very timid.
But he's also a baby.
Yeah, it's a cub.
It's a cub.
I get that.
And that's where they're trying to come at it. And they also immediately introduce him as being unable to communicate or talk.
They introduce this tiger character. He doesn't really talk or communicate. However, I kept expecting him to be the one that stands up for himself. He's a tiger, even though he's a cub.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To let out a roar like Lion King style. You know,
Yeah.
like to be like Simba or something.
Yeah. I thought about that too while we were watching it, but then I was like, no, because if they do that, then suddenly now there's a fourth storyline we have to follow. Like his.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is that if I'm assuming they're going to try to make a third.
I'm sure they will.
They could lead. They could if they hint at it, they could lead into another film with that character. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a whole new character arc in this one film, but just hint at something more. Yeah. And we never get that. Like he's a pretty forgettable character now because he's not a character. He's just a device.
He's a device. Yeah. You know what they could have done if they wanted to build him out as a character is they could have allowed Max to become the mentor. And it would have just taken like a one line. Not he comes across the tiger. It's just him and Max alone for a second, and Max gives him the speech and says, "You just have to. If you pretend to be tough, you'll be tough."
Right.
Like maybe that happens or something.
And it's
where you're going
that's
with
a really good idea because like even if we're led to believe the tiger can't understand anything, if there's something that we see something click in his head when Max says that to him, okay, that's a moment of development that can carry us into a future film. But anyway, these are just like some of the minor things about this film as opposed to the first one that stood out in terms of being problems with the film. I love this film. I think it's really fun.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I would really put those really, really low on the scale of problems. In my opinion, I'm going to see this movie again when it's on TV and everything. I'm going to watch it a few more times. I think it's funny. Kevin Hart's character, oh my gosh, just every time he speaks, I was laughing the entire time. So I really think that this movie has, the longevity that it's looking for.
Yeah, and I really want to see a third. I want to see it continue, A lot of these animated films are great because they set up a world that you want to come back to, even as adults watching this. You know what I mean? Like, I just had that experience. We haven't reviewed it, but How to Train Your Dragon, same type of experience. Yeah. A trilogy of films that you grow with these characters, adult-centered themes, but kid-friendly. This has all those elements that I like in those films.
I agree. Oh, and one of the things that the second movie does that the first movie didn't, and we talked a little bit about this, is they focus more on cats.
Yeah.
Which is so funny because cats are hilarious. And as I'm not a cat person, you're a cat person, I'm a dog person.
Yeah.
But like I think cats are hilarious when they do that, when they go to their extreme. Right. Which is like, knocking things off like we talked about or just tail in the air, I don't care. Yeah. The walk that they have. Like they do it so well in this movie. And the first one didn't hit on that enough, in my opinion.
Absolutely right. I think you're right. The first movie really concentrated on dogs because that's the main character. Yeah. And this one, they made it an effort to like really highlight cats. And they used Chloe, that character, to really highlight and as someone who's owned cats in the past, like I said before, like she was perfect. Everything about that character was just spot on. Yeah. About how they act and hilarious because they are naturally hilarious. That's why they're 5 billion cat videos online.
Right. Exactly.
Because they're just funny creatures.
Exactly.
So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this film, and I hope they do make a third one. I would definitely be seeing it.
Yeah.
Let's get to Emperor Palpatine's lightning round for this week's episode.
You ready? Are you ready for another round of Emperor Palpatine's lightning?
After last episode, I need to be ready. So it's not Jean Grey, right?
No. I went back into our box of Marvel characters.
All right.
This week's topic is Spider-Man.
Yes, because Far From Home's coming out soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get started. Let's jump right in.
I will be ashamed of myself if I do not get most of these right.
I'm hoping I've got some good ones, good stumpers for you. Number 1. What comic book did Spider-Man first appear in?
That's a good one. And I feel like it's a trick one. I'm going to say The Amazing Spider-Man #1.
Nope, that is wrong. Spider-Man first appeared in Amazing Fantasy #15 in August of 1962.
I knew it was some weird thing.
That's why I put it in there. I was like, it's not going to be Spider-Man 1. That's just too easy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Question number 2. Who is Peter Parker's high school bully?
Who is his high school bully?
Yeah, who is Peter Parker's
Flash Thompson.
Flash Thompson. That's correct.
Flash Thompson.
Number 3. What is the name of Peter Parker's clone?
Oh, Ben Reilly.
Dang, how'd you know that?
I told you, man. I know Spider-Man pretty well.
You do know some Spider-Man. This is the side question. Do you know what his superhero name is?
Scarlet Spider.
Yeah, Scarlet Spider.
He has a cool vest. His suit is pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah. He first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man in October of 1975.
I actually didn't know he was that old. I thought he was newer than that, but cool.
Question 4. What other student did the radioactive spider bite right after it bit Peter Parker?
Oh, I don't know the answer to this one. I'll take a guess, though. You said a student.
Another
right
student.
After.
Yeah, and then it immediately dies after it bites the second person.
The second student. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually don't know this. I'll say Norman Osborn. Not Norman, his son.
Nope.
But
Still wrong.
Yeah.
The student's name was Cindy Moon.
I did not know that.
Do you know who that is?
I do not.
Her name is Silk. That's her superhero name.
Okay.
She was later revealed to have abilities more pronounced than Peter's.
Interesting.
So basically, she's like Spider-Man on steroids.
Yeah, like Spider-Woman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't know that either, but I was like, whoa, that sounds crazy. So I looked up Silk, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I never knew that. Okay.
All right, we're back to your favorite question of all of them. According to Ranker.com's top 100 superheroes, what rank did Spider-Man receive?
Okay, he's gonna be high. I know that. He has to be.
He's hot. People like him.
Yeah. I'm gonna say 2.
Oh, you're right. He did. He came in second.
After Batman.
Yep. Because remember we did Batman. He was first.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Well, that concludes another episode of Emperor Palpatine's Lightning Round.
All right, this time I did it right.
You did good.
I think I got 2 wrong or something.
Yeah.
They were tough. So, all right. We'll see what you have stored up for next week. Hopefully do like a DC character.
Maybe. We'll see.
All right. Thanks for joining us, guys. This has been episode 14 of the Porgcorner. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at the Porgcorner. Leave a comment. Did you like The Secret Life of Pets? Do you like this series? Is it one of your favorite animated series? What were your favorite pets in it? Do you have a pet? Just leave a comment. Let us know. And we'll catch you next episode. Bye.